I like how nobody's brave enough to switch on their camera.
Well, our last meeting was without a camera too, like just wasting bandwidth.
Yeah, not only camera, but nobody wishes to open up their mic. So you are the only one besides Yardaniko and me who spoke.
Huh. I guess Andreas isn't here yet, huh?
Yeah, he's usually a bit late. Don't tell him that.
It's sad that Jitsi Meet, like the stop application, doesn't show the full name. Like, it shows the avatar or the active speaker, but it doesn't show the full name. It's just, the one letter or two letters. If you don't have an avatar. You can set up one in settings. Settings profile, then you can set your email for a gravatar avatar. That will be easier to distinguish between people. Oh, we really have too much people. 22 already.
I don't even know if I want my gravatar here, to be honest. But whatever.
I guess we're just waiting for Arak to start.
I really like the sound effect of people, I guess, joining. It reminds me of Age of Empires.
I think that's the sound of chats. If your chat is not open, then you hear when somebody writes something there.
Yes, you're right.
I linked the meeting again in two chats. Maybe more people will join. No, chat is nice. Like, yeah, some people might not have microphones, or I don't think there is a predefined, like, full-on schedule for the meeting. It's basically by the flow. Opening up webcam. Very brave. $28 people. Oh, hi, Ark.
I just sticky taped my webcam because I'm actually afraid that I will accidentally click the webcam button or press a shortcut that enables
you're-
it.
Just put your t-shirt on and you'll be okay. Oh, we have a first webcam.
Where-
Hello from Denmark.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Let's see if anybody else is brave enough.
No, I'm shirtless. I won't.
Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, it works. All right, so apparently you don't start without me. So yeah, this is a developer meeting, right? So the point is to discuss what we are working on, how to distribute the work, how to encourage more pull requests, how to merge pull requests faster, and a little progress report on what we have been able to accomplish. So let me start with oh yes, and we had a meeting, but without that many people 2 weeks ago, mostly to test the tech. But one result of this meeting was that people have no idea what I'm working on. So, and it was proposed that I use some project management software. I think GitHub Action Lanes. Not sure how it's named.
Project boards.
Yeah, maybe. So, and but I couldn't get myself to try it. However, what I'm trying to do, and I have been doing that for quite some time too. So I create pull requests with to-do items, and just right now, for instance, it's pull request 17311 about incremental compilation. Well, you can read the bullet points, and then it's ready to be merged. So yeah, this is how you can really know what I'm working on, because it's the unmerged pull request of mine. Miran works the same way, as far as I can tell, except that his role is more about community management, namely Twittering, social media, forum maintenance, and
website.
yes, thanks. Exactly, website. So, and coincidentally, today is, or maybe it was yesterday, is Kleiber online?
I don't think so.
Sorry. So he managed to get Nim to bootstrap with GC Arc. I'm overly happy about this. So yeah, this was the other milestone. In case you don't know, we said for version 1.4, either async works with org or bootstrapping. It turned out that async was faster than bootstrapping. So yeah, but of course we want bootstrapping to work, and it was actually blocking for the release that makes the GC org the default. Even though that might become version 2 because of little incompatibilities between the old runtime and the new destructor-based runtime. So yes, but it was a significant milestone that was reached, I think, 20 hours ago. I think we can move to the, well, oh no. One more thing before we move to the Ask Me Anything section. So, as I said, I've been working on incremental compilation, and the way this works is it dumps the compiler's internal data structures to disk and stored in these called ROT files. So one Nim module is compiled into an abstract binary file called the ROT file, which contains all the information that we need to produce code. But it's also designed for NIM's tooling. So it's actually a faithful representation of your source code, and for examples, we keep the line information inside, and there is also some, to be implemented, some more annotations like which macros have been expanded and which templates have been expanded. And I'm looking forward to see how this is used for inside NimSuggest or other tools that work like NimSuggest. It's not, I consider this not just some implementation details, so yes, okay, the compiler is faster afterwards, okay, great. But I consider this a key enabler to produce better tools for the Nim programming language. As I said, like you can write a tool that says, okay, I iterate over all these ROT modules and can answer the question, where is the symbol used? Where does it come from? What's its type? And or this template, how often was it expanded, and what was the result of this expansion? Things like that. So let me think. So yeah, so actually I hope that the people who are working on NimSuggest or better on these editor plugin integrations are around here, but I don't know.
I'm here, so hey, Arak. Nice to meet you. It's Simon.
Hey,
yeah,
great.
Thank you for hosting this, by the way.
You're welcome.
Anyhow, I am looking forward to incremental compilation similar to you, I would describe it as a tentpole feature that it's not just simply about incremental compilation, but it's about supporting like an immutable structure for representing like that, or it's like very tightly packed, so it's like very fast queries and like being able to like jump between versions of representations and things like that. So it is super exciting for a number of reasons beyond just simply, hey, look, it's a faster ASD representation or something.
Yes. So my question would be, is there like, what's your what are you working on? What is your plan?
Oh yeah, that's totally cool. Mostly like my approach for Nim, or at least this personal philosophy, has been like, it's an open source project. I'm in full scratch my own itch mode. And if that helps other people, then great. And if it's not useful to other people, sorry, not really. Anyways, the Visual Studio Code Editor was like, it is mostly for me learning Nim, and I also thought that the community could really just use its own extension in its own language and that be approachable for people. Also, I just want better tooling because I'm whiny that way. For NimSuggest itself, like like my first lesson was like, oh, hey, actually NimSuggest isn't anything. It's all in SEM, really. And there's a few like trace points. So my plan right now is mostly around correctness and understanding semantic analysis. And then not just for, and along the way, besides tooling, the thing that I kind of have, I don't know, stumbled upon as I've been poking at SEM has been the semantic analysis portion of the compiler. It's really fundamental to, at least in my mind, like it is fundamentally the implementation or the essence of the language, right? Like it takes the interface or the syntax and like gives it meaning. So we could have specifications, we could have all sorts of things that say like this is what the language does, but truly SEM is kind of like central to deciding that in many ways. So I also, because it's so central to that, because it's so central to tools, I want to rework SEM into something that is a little bit more approachable for not just my forgetful memory, because I only get to work on it like every now and then in the evening or maybe on the weekend, which means I have big gaps, but it's also easier and more approachable for like someone who kind of is a busy contributor or an power user of Nim, if you will, and is every now and then maybe they stumble upon a bug or like realize there's some like insight or breakthrough and want to improve the language, and they're able to, like, one of the things they can do is work inside SEM fairly productively, using their sort of like deeper existing knowledge of Nim, but not necessarily being a full-time compiler contributor. How to actually achieve that, I think it's just going to be a bunch of arguments about like what style works and what style doesn't work and what are the trade-offs. But that's sort of my plan or my trajectory. It's those two major prongs.
Okay, well, more concretely,
so right now I'm working on semproc aux and trying to figure out how to like make that function kind of like, or that proc kind of like really describe all the different things and the guarantees it's making along the way as it analyzes anything that's routine-like.
Can you give us a link to the project in the chat, please?
Sure. I mean, it's kind of gross, but sure. Let me grab. Yeah, I think this is the compare. It's not even close to done. It's very, very like not pretty. So that's just me working through like a refactor, slowly figuring it out, kind of going through it line by line and seeing like what if I rearrange code like this, does it like belie the sort of like mini phases of all the sort of like little analyses that semproc aux does. So first and foremost, like we're trying to resolve like the name. Whether it's already a symbol or it's an identifier or it's anonymous, and then the early generic parameter parsing, and then the parameter parsing, which has implicit parameters come in, and just trying to make all these sort of like mini decisions kind of clear in the code such that someone doesn't have to like extract the reasoning from a set of nested control flow, and it's a little bit more sort of intention revealing, or however you want to describe it, in terms of when we are processing any sort of like proc like thing, then these are the types of things that happen, including the fact that all of this like early semantic analysis, like if we find a prototype and the prototype is like, oh, actually, this is true because, the prototype can have fragments that the other one, that the implementation might not, it can reject the old one. So I mean, I learned a lot of lessons going through this, and Clever like every now and then pokes at it and like or answers some questions, and that's been like super handy. I actually found some fun bugs in this along the way.
I can imagine.
So this has actually been really awesome. Like, I mean, it's frustrating as hell sometimes because like my progress is like 1 or 2 lines of code per evening or per like 6 hours because I like go everywhere. I'm like, okay, what is this doing? Wait, why is it doing that? Wait, is this really guaranteed? And then like kind of auditing it. So, anyways. I found a bug with default parameters. I found a bug with like I think I got compile time working for with a bit of Clever's help for lambdas. That's in sem lambda, which I would like to combine with this. So anyhow, that's kind of what I'm doing very concretely.
Yeah, great, thanks. I'm looking forward to your pull requests. And
I don't know because I've touched a lot of things.
Well, if the tests are still green,
I will. Yeah, and I'm trying to add a bunch more tests too. So,
I'm not that picky, really. It's just don't make it worse. Like
okay. All right.
I mean this. Yeah, I mean this code has grown a lot, as you can tell.
Yeah.
It's also not really. Yeah, I mean, you can say, hey, it kind of works, and hey, it's kind of fast enough. But ideally, we rewrite these things a little bit, or maybe even more aggressively. But as you've seen, progress is slow, and whenever you think, I'm going to just touch this line, nothing will happen. Some crazy test is read, or some important Nimble packages stops working for some reason. So yeah, it's a slow process, and I don't have many good ideas. I know that also many people complain about the lack of documentation in the compiler, but I did this experiment with the new concepts implementation. I was like, here, like everything is documented. This is how concepts matching works. This is my pull request. Now take over. Nobody volunteered. In the end, I merged it. just mostly to keep it from bit routing, because it's all changing all the time.
Yeah. Similar with this, like I'm like, oh crap, I better rebase soon. I know what you mean about like, so this may be controversial, that's fine. Even if I like expose these mini phases and the decisions that are made, and if I like, according to compiler theory, I'm leveraging like, I might break this up into like what's the inspired heavily by attribute grammars or whatever. But in any case, even if I do that, like I think, I could write paragraphs explaining each of those things, and someday, like I think we should have that. But I would much rather have like a meaningful like comment line in a test somewhere, and then a battery of examples saying, like elucidating like what the point is, and have people just kind of like, and like maybe a leading paragraph to say roughly this is the structure, because at the end of the day, like a compiler development module or documentation is in the sense of like down to every function with like lots and lots of description is, I mean, I don't think we have the traffic to make that worthwhile, but kind of making the intention a bit more clear such that someone can at least like load it into their head.
Now that you have been through this, make pull requests. I mean, pull requests that only add comments to the Nim compiler. They cannot break unit tests.
It's totally okay, right? Like
they can only be misleading and outdated, but hey.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. I guess my point is like I would rather have a test that tests like some small even internal chunk or like just tests a guarantee or even just drops an assertion, I personally much prefer executable documentation. It's the way I would describe it. And yeah, I mean, we could have reams of documentation or comments for each of the functions and stuff. And maybe in some cases that helps. But as someone who's been poking at the compiler, especially the similar for a while now, or not forever, but for a reasonable period of time, if I see a comment that makes a claim, I'm like, really? I don't know about that. Right? And so I would much rather have like an assertion say,
Yeah.
fuck you, the compiler will die here if this doesn't work. Right? Like, I'm like, great, I trust that. That's a check that I can cash.
Yeah, and assertions are always turned on these days. So
yeah, that's I really like that. Yeah, high level overview would definitely. I've read the Rust compiler development guideline. Like, it was inspiring, I admit. And I would really like, and in that space,
can you imagine this document wasn't around when I wrote the compiler?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have the internal documentation, this document, but it focuses more on the now completely outdated garbage collector and a bit on the compiler. So, Daniko puts it up in the chat. But I think one problem is not many people know it, and the more impressive stuff is, of course, it's not enough. It's not nearly enough.
I think there's also like a curse of knowledge at play. Like, the part of the problem is I'm already, if you will, like tainted in this regard. Like, I'm already noticing it that if I time traveled back to like a month ago or 2 months ago, and I was observing myself like working through the compiler, I'd be like, no, do this instead, right? And then my past me would be like, what do you mean? Like, how do you figure that out? Or like, how did that happen? And it's the sort of curse of knowledge where I'd be like, it's just obvious now. It's like trying to remember how we used to find information before Google. Like, for me, it was so difficult that I'd be like, oh, wait, I went to the library. How did that work? Oh, index cards and like the computers which looked up the Dewey Decimal System. Sorry, that's very North America, probably. But like afterwards, like your mind kind of like retires and like throws away all this stuff. So my thing is like I'll hop on Discord and like kind of just, you can watch me stare at the code and struggle through it, and you can ask me questions about like, hey, how do you get into like a development loop? For example, that's one of the things that like DisruptX helped me do a few months ago, was like, hey, by the way, your development environment sucks. It takes forever to run tests or build the compiler, like fix all these things. And so I'll do that, and you can ask me questions, and I'll help people kind of get started from what little I know. And as they do that, if they could like sort of, to return the favor, like write that in the guide or something, because I've forgotten the things that are speeding me along. I take them for granted now. Not to say that I'm fast by like any stretch of the imagination compared to others, but even just compared to myself. And that probably, like, even just having someone who's just a little bit more productive in the compiler kind of being available every now and then. Even, I know Discord it's synchronous, it's not to everyone's liking or whatever, but if you're newer and you can capture some of that information, you can also like put updates against that intern doc or whatever it is to kind of help the next person along. I didn't do that as I was figuring things out, which, you know, I do feel kind of bad about that. But it's also one of those things where I have to guess who I'm writing for now. And I would just like keep on writing, and it'd be an asymmetrically large amount of work, where it could be a lot more focused if it comes from the requester.
Yeah,
I'll stop
that's true.
talking. I've been talking for a while.
Yeah, yeah, that's also one of my problems. Like, in my not so humble opinion, you should really read a book about compiler development, and then 2, and then 3, and then look at the Nim compiler source code, rather than expecting me to explain what was documented much better than I could ever do it in old school books, because it's really, you pass this thing into a syntax tree, you run transformations on it, you produce code. In our case, it's not even just machine code, but C code, and then bam, done. The problem is, of course, in all the details, and that new compiler phases are getting added that that are also sometimes not well covered by the books, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
DFA is kind of a little newer. I haven't found it covered as much, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
yeah. How
I think Liquid wanted to say something.
No, I just misclicked R. I was actually going to focus on our window, but it raised my hand for some reason.
Nailed it.
So it's already half an hour, and this meeting will take 1 hour. I'm not sure if I told you. Sorry. So I propose we now do this Ask Me Anything session, unless you have something, or maybe we have some other compiler developer who wants to tell us about his work. Anybody?
I'm unfortunately not very prepared for it, but like I could help later on. I guess the question, perhaps, sorry, not for you. Well, maybe we should start with the EMA, but actually would want to ask a question to everyone else here, and maybe I'll ask in chat, and people can ask me like directed questions if it's also useful. All right, sorry about that.
Yeah, okay. Questions? And if you don't have any, I have some for Federico.
So I just had a question about the NimSuggest thing. So I think in that RFC about incremental compilation, you mentioned that NimSuggest would actually be turned into a command line tool where you just query it once and it gives you an answer, instead of being, like a daemon, basically, where you communicate through std in and std out. So is it actually going to come to fruition, or was this just an idea?
Sorry, this is not a daemon. It's actually more comparable to grep. Like, you ask grep, like, give me the definition of this thing on the command line, which is of course annoying because you don't know the line and the column within your editor, but then this is the job of the editor's plugin. It's just call this external command with the current cursor position, basically, and a bit more information, but that's basically it. And then yeah, so it's a command line tool. It runs once, it answers the question, and then dies, just like grep.
So that's basically how NimSuggest is going to be basically implemented from now on, right?
Yes. However, I think what we will do instead is, there was an old tool called Nim Find that tried to do that, but it was always too slow because it lacked this IC integration. So we will probably patch Nim Find to work this, and then your editor can choose whether to still run NimSuggest or Nim Find. So that's the smooth transition path then.
All right, so that's pretty cool, because I'm actually working on editor integration with Lite, which is a fairly lightweight and small text editor. And the one thing that Lua doesn't have is good IPC. So I was pretty excited for that and just wanted to ask whether that would actually come. So I'm happy to hear that.
All right.
I know there's like, and I don't want to say it should be opened up to everyone because for good reasons, there's an internal sort of like compiler dev sort of conversation. The Nim main channel is really busy, and I was wondering if it'd be possible to have, like, some of us have been using Nim internal, and I would like to keep it sort of quiet and focused on very much the internal core development of Nim. But to have people who are maybe not like, they don't have a commit bit or whatever, but like myself, who are in the compiler, like, but have a place to chat and like have the developers there. Like, I know Iraq, you're not there, but like, would it be possible to have you there so we kind of have like the plumbers or internal channel for that?
Yep.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so it's my turn again. Federico, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. About the CVEs, can you tell me or ping me later what should I really review and do? I'm a bit lost, to be honest.
Okay, no problem. Just double check if what has been released fixed the issues that are flagged as fixed before we publish them.
Oh, yes. Okay. Let me recheck. I did check, but you can never check enough. So, all right.
Is it enough that fix is merged, or should it be in a released version?
Should be released.
But they are in the released version, aren't they?
I think it's better to double check before.
Yeah.
All right.
Them, and I think some might not be.
So there was a question on the chat. Any updates on Status is going to sponsor a developer for tooling related things? Yes, they hired somebody for that purpose, like it's a full-time position. But to be honest, I don't know who that is. Is he here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's a part-time position.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Yes, Mummy. Who is it?
It's Sime friend.
Sime friend. Okay, he's not.
He recommended someone.
Someone contacted me. It was Zahra. He was like, "Hey, do you want to work on Nim full time?" And I'm like, "I actually have a full time job, and I'm not leaving anytime soon. Thank you very much, but maybe I can think of someone." I had someone, and someone seemed to, in my mind, really fit that mold, and I guess it worked out because they obviously talk to a lot of people at Status, and so. Yeah, as far as I know, they're kind of like finalizing a few things, and then they'll be starting soon.
Is it somebody that we know on IRC or Discord?
I think they've been lurking on Discord, but no. They're kind of newer to the Nim community and stuff like that. As Mammy mentioned, like, they're a friend of mine, and so they know about Nim because me. And I don't shut up about it sometimes.
Thanks.
But yeah, so they're a bit nearer to it. It's fine. Like they've got like a strong C background and a game programming and engine background and like a bunch of lower level stuff too, and like simulations and some language.
The most interesting part, I think, is that he never used Nim, so he comes with all the preconceptions like how a modern language should work. Instead of I think he did a lot of Java as well and work on Java IDE,
which is discrete event simulator,
which is like Java gives you everything. So even if we have like 10% of that, I think we're good. We'll be good.
I would be
totally agree. And yeah, I mean, that's a bit of my personal pain point, because I still compare Nim to Delphi from the 90s, which I happen to love. And it's sad we are still far away from them. But we will get there. So there is a question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, there's another question out there.
There is another question about some pull request. Oh yeah, canceling of futures using complete and fail. And Dominic, I think you are around, so maybe you can say something about it.
Sure. I mean, I could say something. I didn't have enough time to look into it properly, but if someone else from the core team wants to review it properly and merge it, I'm not gonna stand in the way of that.
But I don't think I have what it takes to review this. But what I can do is to just merge it. I mean, I can review it as good as I can, right? And then I can merge it, and then we can see if people come up with complaints and follow-up pull requests. So that to make people to keep them motivated. But I don't know if you appreciate this way of development.
Well, in general, I would say it would be nice to commit some time into researching exactly how this is done in other programming languages and decide based on that.
Yeah, but the contributor did claim to have done this research. If I remember correctly, maybe it was somebody else. So, yeah, it's well, a bit yeah.
If you're happy with that, then by all means, go ahead and merge it.
I might.
I leave the decision up to you.
Let me comment a bit.
Oh, you are here. Sorry.
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening to you. I've used such constructions from Python 2.7 and 2.6 in Twisted. It works like the same. The cancellation points made similar to which I've made it to Nim async futures. And I think that my fix will not break anything which was made before, because it is not changing the behavior of previous code a bit.
Okay, can you maybe in this pull request, maybe next one, document it well? Like, what were your, like, how does it work? How was your thought process? Or maybe just link to Twisted from Python and say we are actually doing it like them, something like that.
One thing I would look into, is also how Kotlin does cancellation. because Kotlin is very new, their async is very new, and they are based on coroutines and continuations, which means it might be easier to port to, if we finalize CPS, to port to CPS.
In addition, the folks who've been developing Kotlin JetBrains, they work in an environment where they have a lot of exposure to a lot of different languages, and by definition, and also because wanting to do a good job with Kotlin, they've done a lot of the deep research into how to do this and how it's been figured out, so you can kind of stand on the shoulder of giants, if you will.
Yeah, I've heard the same from other sources recently.
I would like to know the status of CPS.
So one before you go on, Mami, I think we shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So the way I see it, this pull request adds cancellation to our async framework. Bam, let's add it. And then CPS comes along and giving us async version 3 or something with better or different cancellation. And I don't think this has to interfere with this particular pull request.
Well, it doesn't have to if we have deprecation, a way to deprecate or change things in the standard library.
Yeah, well.
So sorry, just one thing I would say is maybe I'm mistaken, but from what I've seen in the pull request, it doesn't implement cancellation. It sort of does the first step. So I would say there's still more work to be done. And I'm just wondering, basically, is that the right step to get to cancellation?
Don't get here. Didn't get here. There is a cancellation points which are made, which are canceling while the iterator comes to next step of the iteration in the macro. So I think it will not cancel only the timer jobs because it is harder to implement, but when the callback is canceled, even when the timer will fire, it will not produce anything because it is marked internally that it is canceled. So there will be no side effects.
Right, but there isn't like an explicit action you can take to say, I want to cancel this operation. At least I didn't see it in the pull request.
Yes, you can complete or fail the future, and it will complete it or fail it, and transfer the failure to all callbacks which are waiting for this future, or transfer the return code to all if it is just completed, to all the futures, to all awaiters of this future, and cancel this future. And all futures with which are produced by this future internally. So it is canceling everything is which are recursive, which futures are recursive.
Right, but should that happen when you're completing a future?
Yes, it should, because the completion of the future means cancellation of every operations which it is producing. So you should cancel everything which is produced internally, all operations. Because every awaiter for this future will get the code or an exception if it's failed, and will continue to operate, and some sort of callbacks which will work for timer or for IO internally for this cancelled future will produce bugs, and it will be very hard to detect and to determine which way it is produced and how to fix it. So cancellation is a must.
Yeah, I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding why we need to change the current semantics, because this to me seems like an additional explicit action you would be taking on the future rather than on all the existing completions of the future.
Sorry to disrupt. There was another question about CPS, which I think we should focus on, and then we should come back to this pull request if you don't mind. Because, I mean, of course, the meeting can go on without me, but I will leave in 10 minutes. Right?
Sure.
Okay, Mami, you have been looking into CPS, or?
Yeah. So in December, I've been working on the version from Disruptech and Zev. I've mostly used the high-level part and hacked a bit the bottom, so I could try to get my design out and see if it's working. So this one was kind of working. But since Disruptech and Zev stopped working on the core, I think it's important that I understand how it's done in the backend. So this is done in a repo called with.io. I can post it in the chat. I think the high-level design is somewhat usable. We had some kind of discussions, sometimes heated with Disruptech, but you can read what I think would be a nice start. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to understand the CPS transform. I'm trying to understand extra transformations that can be done after CPS to optimize the code chain. I guess one of the unknown that I have is how to deal with inline iterators. So this one is kind of important. And yeah, then there is all this transformation from C code, C or Nim code to CPS, because most of the courses and repo that I read are about functional languages. So there is this thing, but I can use a Disruptech repo as a reference. Why I don't use directly their code? It's mostly because if there is a bug right now, I wouldn't understand where to start debugging. So I need to understand the transform myself.
Sure. Okay, sounds good. But as I said, feel free to hack the Nim compiler to do this transformation, because within the macro system, you would need to work on typed trees, which have no spec. And as you said, like, how do I deal with inline iterators? Well, in the compiler, you simply say, hey, I'm gonna transform this after inline iterators have been, well, inline, right? So that's not a problem.
Yeah, so regarding types, I agree. That's also one thing, like I dread. Everyone, I think, knows how I hate working with types in macro, even though I somehow managed to get my way out. But I've never worked in the compiler. I don't know the startup time. Is it like 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I've debugged things in the compiler, just following the chain of bugs, but that's why I wanted to start as a library first, just to make sure I get the logic right. And see. It's just I don't know how much time it takes to get into the compiler everywhere I would need.
Well, ask
Hey guys.
Sam.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that's totally fair. But like as I mentioned earlier on RC, like if you're kind of in a bit of a tight dev loop, then so coming from the other side, like I've read through some of the CPS code. It makes a bit of sense to me. Theoretically, like I do understand it. There's a bunch of subtleties that I'm still missing. I'd be more than happy to help more with CPS, especially like if it's like just kind of making you productive by me. The two things I'd be looking at is like just to make sure I've like kind of the distillation of the theory or whatever that we're working with. I know there's a few approaches and there's some trade-offs and there's also this fine-tuning. So first, partially it's me loading that into my head, and I might need some help with understanding a few of those things. But then I'm more than willing to help. Like if say, for example, you run into a compiler bug, like I'll help you debug it and I'll write a PR to fix it if I have to. It's totally like not a problem. And if you want to start as a library, like I can understand that as a risk mitigation. So that's cool too. But whatever you sort of need, I will try my best.
Yeah, just make. Sorry. Yeah, just make sure that you are not blocked by the fact that you are working with it as a library. As long as you make progress and you say, yeah, okay. So roughly this is the sketch. Now it works, and now I understand it, and now I can re-implement it in the compiler or something. That's fine. But if you get stuck because of macro issues, then I would suggest you start earlier looking into the compiler rather than later.
Sure.
All right.
I had a short question about what's the general opinion about using option type in the standard library?
I think I'm the only guy left who doesn't like it, so
Yeah.
I cannot really fight it anymore.
I was just asking because I opened an RFC about adding proc to tables which returns an option.
Yeah.
For tables, like to discuss that possibility. So I wanted
Yes,
to
I've read it.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, one problem you noticed yourself, like it cannot really work right now with varity. So you cannot get an optional mutable view into the data, or maybe actually you could if you just use PTR instead. But that's one issue that we should solve maybe before we go on. Or maybe we say, okay, if you want an option, you get an option of T, or with the implied copy. I'm not sure. I personally mind it quite a bit, not just because it's option T and I don't like option T, but it's also yet another API that you add to tables. Then you need it for consistency, to count tables, to B-tree tables, to sets, and then all the other collection types. And I mind this quite a bit because this is like consistency is the best way to get bloat.
Okay, yeah. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. I really like the chainability and composability option. I'm a huge fan of that in other languages of programming, but I think I maybe have more qualms about option itself. I mean, maybe there's an RFC in here, as much as it may seem a bit specialized for like Kotlin does it where it's like dot question mark. So it'll do like a nil or null, say for other JVM access. And that way, like it works exactly as like a dot call, but it will kind of just sugar over the fact that there's like a nil check for you. Maybe that's.
You mean this dot question mark operator?
Yeah, the dot question. Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's another operator, it's another thing, but I mean,
I like operators, but again, I'm
there is very much something that composes really nicely about option, but I do understand that if implemented very naively and immediately, it does incur a bunch of memory allocations, which in and of itself is not a big deal, but it creates problems when you are not ready for accumulating lots of little garbage. And you're not optimized for that. Like, I mean, if you're an OCaml, like it's like the GC is like made for that. So that's kind of unfortunate, but that's also like a trade-off.
Yes. Okay, one more question on the chat from you. I have the Zen of Nim written. I didn't publish it because it's still writing. But yes, definitely, I will.
It'd be okay if you said like alpha or like 0.1 on it. It just really helps to sort of have that, because it's. I mean, I will admit the reason I'm asking the question is because, like, not you, Iraq, but like the Iraq in my mind will often like kill the PRs or the attempt to change before I even try. And so by having the sort of the values there, it's a bit reassuring, and like, I mean, so it's a bit reassuring to, I think, for even for myself and also for others to kind of have the like, no, it'll be okay, like it won't get shot down immediately. Like,
well, okay, but that's not covered by the Zen of Nim. The Zen of Nim is maybe 7 bullet points of how I think the language design has been done so far and should continue. But
I could then or someone could then like at least use that and be like, am I at least true to that, right? Like it's sort of this early litmus test.
Yes, well, we can try. I'm skeptical because usually it's not so easy. Like you ask me, can I add option T to tables? And I say no, but all the others say yes. So I'm trying hard not to use my dictatorship powers very often. I keep them for when nothing else works. At least that's what I'm trying. So, but there is a tension between, hey, I added this feature, it was useful for me, and it might be useful for 10 other guys. So let's just have it. It can't hurt. And the fact that people are trying all these different features, finding bugs in them, and report back, and it hurts our quality. And there is not. I mean, we have to find a middle ground between rock solid stability and featureism. It's also still not clear to me why so often things cannot just be done as a Nimble package first, but that's a discussion for another day. So thank you for joining. As I said, I have to leave now. It was awesome to have so many people around. We will repeat this meeting. Yes. Anything else? I mean, of course, you can continue about your async cancellation and CPS and maybe even the new standard channel implementation. But I have to go now. So thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
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 Thanks, Iraq.
I wonder how many people will leave now.
Everybody go right now, immediately.
No, you hang up first.
Yeah.
So I still have a few minutes if we want to continue the discussion.
Yeah, sure.
You've got my curiosity. I started reading the PR.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can say, because again, like I said in the PR, I didn't have time to properly assess what's in it. But from what I think it was QMaster, right, said, about Twisted, as far as I'm aware, Twisted is quite an old framework. So I would be eager to know how something like Kotlin, like someone else mentioned, how does it handle the cancellation? And
well, it's hard to compare. It's apples to oranges because Kotlin uses the CPS style, right? The entire underlying, yeah, as far as I understand.
So Kotlin uses CPS, but the high level can be replicated in async await, I think. There is this talk, deep dive into Kotlin. It's based, so Kotlin is coroutine, and coroutines are closure iterators, like async await in Nim. And CPS is just an artifact of how it's compiled.
Yeah, so what is at the top level in Kotlin? Is it async await or is it something else?
It's async await without writing await. So suspension points are outlined by the JetBrains IDE, and they say, oh, this removes color because you don't have to call await.
That's a big lie. Okay.
Oh, the colors. Oh, function colors.
Someone suggested the same thing for Nim, actually. I don't remember exactly who, but I remember it was a suggestion. Sorry, Q-Master, I think you were saying something.
Yeah, I've mentioned Twisted because it works like the same like the current implementation of async await in Nim. It also uses iterators. It is working like the same because it is decorating the asynchronous function into just an iterator and cancels it internally and cancels everything which is producing, just like when you tell him complete or failure. That's like it works. And I don't know how it works in Kotlin because I don't like this language. Sorry, guys. I think it's awful, but that's my opinion only. So I can't just dig into it because I'm not I don't understand it quite well. As far as I know, this cancellation is the same also in Tornado framework, which is also Python. I don't know really how it is done in the new async await Python realization, but I think I can. It also cancels, doesn't have the explicit cancel feature for the future, but it also cancels it just by completing or failing the future. So I think it is like the same, like in Twisted, because it's heavily migrated from it.
I see. Yeah, I guess my main concern is that I don't have any insight into kind of the overall picture of how you're thinking cancellation should work. So for me, it's difficult to gauge whether whether it's safe to merge the pull request, basically. But like I said, I think if this is blocking you, I will defer to Andreas, and if he's happy to merge this, then or other people in this chat can also take a look at the pull request now. I think there's lots of other people here who have context on async. Specifically, like I mentioned in the pull request, I think it would be awesome to get someone that has worked on Kronos from Status to take a look at it, because I know they implement cancellation, and Kronos is based on async dispatch. So I'm curious how it compares.
I looked into Kronos cancellation points. It works a bit different. It's implemented a bit different. They have the hash table of all the callbacks and all awaiters, and when someone is canceling, they don't have the completion or explicit completion or failure of the future. They only have the cancellation of the future. As far as I know, it's something might change since they are when I looked at it. So they are just looking through this hash table and cancel all the callbacks, which are marked there by the address of the future, as far as I understood. I think it is a bit complicated realization, but there is no need for my storage of the internal futures in the main future. So they are just looking into this hash table and take everything from there, not from internal fields of this future, which I made myself patch in the patch.
Okay, so let me give you a scenario that just popped into my head, which is on Windows with the oh god, what is it called? Not the readiness-based, but the completion-based model, where let's say
IOCP.
IOCP, where let's say you're doing something very simple like asking to receive data from a socket. How would this work with your model? Because I didn't see, or rather with your pull request, I didn't see any, like basically if you cancel that future, Windows will still have that as a task to do. It'll still be pending on the socket to receive data, and there's nothing to tell it, please cancel this operation. You're only going to be canceling the future, right?
Yes, there will be no real canceling of the future on I/O, but when a portion of the data will got from this future, from the socket, it will call callbacks, which are associated with this I/O, and the callbacks will cancel everything. They are just quitting silently.
Yeah, but then, as far as I understand, you will have a difference between Windows and all the other operating systems, because on Linux and BSD, you will not actually read the data, or you might actually read some of it, which could be another problem. But on Windows, you will read it even though the future has been cancelled. Is my thinking correct?
Don't really know. I haven't tested this. This idea hadn't come to me, so I don't really know.
To clarify how IOU ring and IOCP is working, so this is only things I read, though I did read a lot. Basically, in the completion model, you provide a buffer to the kernel, and the kernel will write into the buffer directly. So you need to ensure that your buffer outlives until the kernel said it's ready. And if you want to cancel that, contrary on Linux, in the readiness-based model, the kernel will tell you you can now read or write in a non-blocking manner from this buffer. So before reading or writing, you can just check, was it cancelled? And if it was, you just don't do the operation.
Mhm.
But in the completion model, if you receive a cancellation signal token something, that something is already in the kernel being processed, and I'm not sure you can send something to the kernel. So you will have to wait until the kernel finishes giving you the info in the buffer, and then you need to discard that buffer because the consumer doesn't expect anything from you once it's cancelled.
I think that it will now work like this. It will wait for this buffer to be filled from the kernel, and when on return it will check. It will iterate one step, understand that it is cancelled, and just break, and discarding the buffer and everything else.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, I think what Mami is saying is that there is basically nothing, like we can't do anything. As soon as you send a request on Windows to the kernel to read some data, there's no way to cancel it. Am I understanding correctly?
I don't know on that part. Maybe
I
they
just
have
posted
an
a link.
interface.
They do. They have an interface to cancel. You have to tell the kernel in Windows to cancel the operation.
Okay, so that was my impression. So based on what I've seen in the pull request, this is what the problem would be. We would need to handle this basically.
It's fine if we let the Windows kernel write and we only cancel after, unless maybe it's a timeout and.
It will not stop while it is reading. It might stop after reading if it is cancelled. So I think we don't need to cancel anything to the kernel because we are just waiting for I/O, and that's all. For I/O to complete. I need to check this, but I think that it will work like this.
Okay, well, I think we do have to cancel it because I can see a scenario where someone is performing lots of cancellations and they effectively are losing data. Like, let's say you have a read on a
It could
socket.
be worse. It could be worse if Nim removes the buffer. If you know, I guess garbage collection is the wrong word if you're using orc or something. But if the buffer is no longer there and the kernel tries to write to it, then you're in trouble.
This will not happen. This will not happen. The buffer is disposed only after reading, not before, not in the process. It is not possible because we are waiting for it.
Yeah, but you cancel.
But I need to check this. I haven't.
One thing that is I think would be helpful is because cancellation is something very hard and no languages nailed it. Would be to we create some scenarios and just making sure that we cover our asses with those scenarios, and we need scenarios on readiness model, so EPOL, and Windows IOCP, because the lifetimes are different.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe this could be in a RFC, so that if we ever change cancellation, we can just refer, okay, this must work, this must work, this must work, and we can write tests for this.
Can someone please make this for IOCP in Windows, because I'm not a window coder, so I don't understand how it is working there.
Basically, you write your scenarios for Linux, and we just, because at a high level it would be the same, so those will be applicable for both. It's just that checking that it works, we will need to know the low level, but the high level, like reading from something, canceling it, and what happens is something that you can write.
Yep, I will try to write some tests for this, and I think they will work. As far as I understood the code. So I'll check it. It is good idea because I haven't tested this.
So there's also a question about what happens in the cancelled coroutine. Like, is any exception being raised once you cancel the future? Will the exception be raised in the corresponding coroutine that it has been cancelled? Because if not, then you essentially have no way to handle that, and for instance, close any hand-in file descriptors and stuff. And if you unify this exception with something like future error generic, then you again have no way to differentiate between cancellation, which is a valid way of doing things, against something invalid, if that makes sense. And Vladimir, in your PR, I haven't seen the tests that demonstrate this behavior.
Yes, there is a test which I must just tell that the internal, the recursive futures will be cancelled silently, so the code will not know how is it cancelled or not. It is just cancelled on next iteration, and that's all. It's cancelled without informing the awaiting future that it is cancelled. But
right.
The main future, if it is cancelled or failed, in case of failure, it will just raise an exception.
Yeah, I understand.
Same as it is if the exception is produced internally, and if complete, it's just pass the complete data to the awaiting side, and that's all. I
Okay,
think
this is the biggest problem that I'm seeing with this PR is that imagine you have an async function that basically does try and then finally, and in its finally it deallocates some system resource like a file descriptor or something. And as I understand, if you cancel it in the middle of the try, the finally will never get called, right?
Let me check this. I hadn't tried this.
For this kind of things, I'm always saying you need cooperative cancellation. So the caller that wants to notify the callee that it's being cancelled, and it should do some cleanup, like releasing a socket or database connection or something. There needs to be a channel that after each await is being checked by the callee.
Well, or you can do it like Kronos does it. So basically, how Kronos does it is it just walks all the way recursive to the deepest future, and then cancels it out. And then once it's read, it just rises the cancellation error, and then it gets propagated like up the async stack, so to speak. And so, and also you can add cancellation callbacks if you wish, but that's not really necessary, as you can just try and catch the cancellation error and handle whatever you have to in the cleanup before re-raising the cancellation error again.
The difference between mine realization and the Kronos realization is that they are just canceling the future, and so they are just propagating this, rolling into this to the deepest future, and then raises the cancellation exception and propagate it up to the main future. But mine is a bit more complicated. I'm doing like the same, but without exception. I dig into the deepest future of this, to the deepest child future, and mark it as canceled. I just not cancel it. I mark it as canceled. So any callbacks or completions or failures are just looking for this flag and just ignores everything and just cancel. That's all.
Well, yeah, I understand, and that's the problem I'm seeing with this PR solution.
Yes, this might be the problem, but I tried to make it working like the Chronos part, but I'm stuck in how to determine the highest level. So not to propagate the future cancelled exception to the future which is just complete with some code, not cancelled. It's complete or failed. So not to substitute the exception which I sent to this future by exception which is future cancelled error. I tried to implement this functionality, but I failed.
Yeah, I can't really say much here. It sounds pretty straightforward, but I understand that there might be some details that I am not accounting for. But anyways, I believe that you're mistaken about Cronus using some sort of hash maps for the futures, because if I remember correctly, it only uses the hash maps for the futures for debugging purposes to watch for like live futures and to account for them. And I believe it's also optimized away in the release mode. I might be wrong, but I'm almost sure that there's no like future hash maps or stuff like that is involved in the cancellation itself.
I can't tell you now because I've seen to this code rather long time ago, but it is digging, as far as I remember, it is digging into the futures just by checking. Yes, it has in future by the child some sort of I did. So
yeah. So it's pretty much recursive as you did, but it also adds the callbacks for the cases like Dom mentioned when you want to cancel the.
Yes, there is a cancel callback. Yes,
right.
I see it. It is a cancel callback. I think it will be no problem to make callbacking to the cancel callback in my code. But as far as I remember, I don't remember what I've done. I made calling callbacks while it is cancelled. So I think it will call the complete callback on cancellation. I don't really remember. Oh.
Okay, I wonder, I mean, I don't know if we're going to have these meetings weekly now, but hopefully we will. And we can, I think it would be valuable to discuss these kinds of things because, you know, doing it on GitHub, it's not as easy. And if we can get together lots of people that have context on this stuff, even better. But I guess hopefully now we have some actions for QMaster to continue with this. And if there's other things to discuss, we can discuss them next week. I don't know if there's other things that people want to discuss now.
I'm not sure, but haven't we decided to do it every 2 weeks?
Okay.
Yeah, that was the idea, bi-weekly.
Yeah, I think that can work too.
But maybe like I think most of Nim users are in Europe, so maybe we need something that works. Like one we do early for Europe, so that people from Asia can join, and one we do late for Europe, so that people from the US can join.
Yeah, and also another thing to mention is that this room doesn't close when everyone leaves, so you can just join at any time. You can invite someone else, you know, if you want to talk. Yeah. As I think. I'm not sure exactly, but I think so. And of course we have Discord, like Sam streams there regularly, as he said before. And people join and talk as well.
Cool.
I was suggesting to send out a doodle to get people to vote on which day they would prefer. I guess some people will prefer Friday maybe. For some people, weekend will be better.
Yeah, as far as I understood, it's I guess Andreas's availability that's limiting here. But yeah, I'm sure it would be interesting to see what everyone else's availability is anyway.
Yeah, we can figure out some other time if that's better for everybody. But yeah, as you said, Arak is the limiting factor. But on the other hand, we or you can have these meetings whenever you can, or whenever you want. As Yardaniko said, this is open channel, so if you want to have it on Tuesday morning, fine. I mean, if you want to discuss this CPS stuff and so on and so on.
I mean, I think CPS is a really cool thing. So if you want to talk about it, I will listen.
I have a lot of research and papers in my Weevil, so you can draw in it.
I've been watching old Strange Loop talks, and there's a lot of good from the Racket conference there. There's a lot of cool talks about how they're using continuations in Racket to do crazy stuff. And I was like, man, if Nim gets this, it'll be really cool. like the way their web server works. Basically, you can use continuations to automatically generate dispatch tables for your web server, which is pretty cool.
Yuri, I was looked into my code, so upon cancellation, it calls all callbacks which it has. So I think any canceled future will run through the wait step. So I think I understand how to implement the failure codes. I'll try.
Yeah, but for cancellation callbacks, you have to have a different sort of callbacks because it's not the consumer that uses those callbacks, but the producer. So basically,
I think I can raise just a future cancelled exception, and that's all in there. Not calling the cancel callback, but just raising an exception. I think it is possible. I'll try to. I just need to cut this exception not to propagate up level, and just on every recursive call, I just re-raise this exception to the children futures, but not for the main future, and that's all. I think this will help.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I need some tests about this, and I'll check it.
So yeah, guys, in the meantime, I've been also experimenting with async and CPS stuff. And so what I managed to do, or to at least to prove that it can work, is pretty much the same async pragma that we have now, except you can call async functions without the await keyword. You can call them in both async and non-async contexts. And yeah, and also it doesn't require the GC at all. It doesn't like allocate anything, and works pretty much like Rust's futures, as far as I'm aware.
That was the original inspiration behind going this way. That was very good to hear.
Yeah, and some of the, I guess we are all hitting the same roadblocks, like for loops with inline iterator slowerings. And I tried to lower inline iterators in macros, but then I've hit a couple of name issues, like internal errors and crashes, and they are currently reported on GitHub. But what I'm thinking, so Andreas proposed to do it in the compiler, and I guess it will be still a lot more beneficial to do it in the library, because the library can, for instance, if we're talking about the state split transformation for the whatever is the CPS stuff, for instance, then in the Nim compiler, the state splits occur on every yield statement, whereas in the async world, on the higher level picture, we want them to happen on the await or on the calls of async functions, even without the await keyword. So that's something macro can determine, but not the compiler itself. So I guess it's more of a higher level problem, and compiler operates on a lower level. Yeah.
In your experiment, does it require an event loop? Because basically, I've been operating in CPS with it does the transformation needed, and you can use it without event loops, just like in Lua coroutines. But it's since it's event loop agnostic, you can use it to transfer as a base for tasks, for example, and transfer tasks from async dispatch to Chronos, or Chronos to Weave, or like even libuv and things like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the CPS transformation is just a CPS transformation. It has nothing to do with the async loop itself. And there needs to be, well, basically, even if you look at the async dispatch code, it's really untied. The futures, I mean, the futures in the async system is really untied from the async dispatch and the IO selectors, and they are only tied in the lower level networking functions. Yeah. So, and I guess any CPS transformation would not really be too tied to the async dispatch or IO selectors or lib events or whatever. But yeah, I guess the fact that it uses the single, it doesn't use a memory graph to store the stack, so to speak. It does it, it stores it in a single macro generated object, which is of fixed, although big size, but it is non-compile time, so you can control whether to allocate it on stack or on the heap. And also, from the user perspective, it all is just hidden and should work like automagically. But yeah, it's pretty much zero cost. And since it doesn't use any kind of GC, well, unless you're using GC stuff inside your functions, then yeah, it's easy to transfer it between the threads potentially. Or if we're talking Weave, yeah, that might be the option too. But like I said, it's a bit tricky to. There's a lot of hidden bugs in Nim. When I try to work with the typed syntax tree, like swap and swizzling typed identifiers and all that kind of stuff, and the Nim just blows up on that. So I have filed a few issues about it, and yeah, no one has responded so far. So if there are any Nim compiler developers around here, please have a look.
I just have like this constant question in my mind, and it's gotten even louder now that Mami has, from what I recall, Mami has said that the current closure iterators implementation is very much CPS-like, and I keep wondering, the main advantage of CPS appears to be that we don't have to allocate these closure iterators on the heap. We can allocate it on the stack. Wouldn't it be possible? And you probably know this best, actually, Yuri, because you worked on the closure iterators. Wouldn't it be possible to just quickly make it possible to allocate these on the stack? Well, I guess
we lost him. Yuri, are you there?
Hello?
Hello? I think we can hear you now.
Okay, how long was I muted?
Well, I haven't heard you say
never
anything.
unmuted.
Oh shit. Right. So my idea for now is to port the closure iterator transformation from the compiler to the macro, so that pretty much all of the transformation and state splitting happens inside the macro, except with a small difference that we split the closure iterator on the yield keyword. Well, I mentioned it like a couple of minutes ago. And in the macro, we would need a different, like a different node to split the states on. And that's the only difference. Once the states are split, it no longer matters if it's CPS or closure. I mean, it's all the same, like Mami said. It's essentially the same. It only depends on the backend how it composes and arranges these states, whether it embeds every state into its own separate function and then uses this function as a continuation callback, or whether it just stuffs all the states into a switch case statement and puts the switch case statement in the for loop, or I mean the while loop, or whatever, like it is done in the closure iterator implementation currently. So yeah, there is not much difference. Yeah.
Did you watch the talk that is called the greatest refactoring you've never heard of?
I believe I don't.
It's one from okay, so I'll post it. It's one from a compose loop conference or something like this. This is something that Arak sent me because I was influenced by LLVM and C++ talk about keeping things into functions as long as possible. And it told me to look into defunctionalization, which is something that can be done after CPS transform. And basically, it transforms your CPS back into a state machine. And it has some advantages. So just look at it and see if that could be something interesting. The talk is very practical and with very good example, and also explain what happens when you do CPS.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Okay, I guess I will be leaving now and stopping the recording.
Yeah, likewise.
Goodbye.
Fair enough. See you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Did not know it was recording.
Yes, people with webcams. Well, I'm not sure if we will put it online, just, in case someone needs to. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.